My name is Bianca, and I'm getting my computer science bachelor's degree in 3 weeks. You might be wondering, what does coding have to do with reading? The answer is everything. To me. I go through life by comparing my lived experience with the lives of characters in books, so this is actually extremely relevant. I don't know any other way to explain to you the emotions that I went through while completing this degree besides just giving you book recommendations. So theoretically, if you read all of these books, you would have gone through the same emotional battlefields that I had to go through to get to the finish line, which is just over the horizon. So I split up my undergrad experience into 3 eras to most effectively recommend books to you. There are timestamps in the description, feel free to skip around if you would like, and let's just start at the beginning. Era 1, my Anne Shirley Cuthbert era. If you have read Anne of Green Gables, or if you've seen the show Anne with an E, you would know that Anne is a very stubborn, naive, and optimistic character. These 3 words completely describe who I was in the first year or 2 of my undergrad. I actually had to take introductory computer science 3 times, and then I became a mentor for the class, which is basically like the TA's TA. I held office hours, I graded exams, I facilitated lab sessions, so my stubbornness did pay off. I think the naivety is pretty self-explanatory. Everybody's pretty naive when they start college. But I was super positive. I had no idea what I wanted to study, but computer science somehow got lodged in my brain, and I just kept trying and kept a positive attitude until one day it worked out. So the first book that I'm going to recommend to you based off this era is The Course of Love by Alain de Botton. This book follows the relationship of a married couple, but I hesitate to call it a romance. It's more of a character study / psychological analysis of what it looks like to be in love and stay in love, and the beliefs that you have to let go of when you want love to last. You get a close third-person perspective of both characters with an omniscient narrator who's able to analyze both of their psyches. The 2 of them face obstacles in their relationship that are not uncommon, but still very heart-wrenching, and they continuously have to keep working past them to stay in love and keep their relationship, keep their family going. I'm recommending this book because it kind of taught me that the things that we love, we have to work really hard for. And that is what I had to do for this era of my degree. It felt like I loved computer science, but computer science didn't love me, and I had to just keep going. But it worked out, and now I'm here. Along the same vein, I'm going to recommend to you Persuasion by Jane Austen. At its core, this is a second chance romance. Our main character, Anne Elliot, is in love with Captain Frederick Wentworth, but is persuaded to break off the relationship because of social class differences. 8 years later, they find themselves in each other's lives again, but their social class statuses have changed, and they have a second chance to see what could have been. I included this because the second chance romance kind of mirrors the second and third attempts that I had to take in order to move forward in my degree. There's also some really fun scenes on a beach in this book that just make me feel nostalgic for the early times of my freshman year, sophomore year, when I was just having fun with my friends, not having any cares in the world. I think the quote on the back of this book also sums it up really well. "You pierce my soul, I'm half agony, half hope." That's how I felt struggling through the curriculum in the very beginning of my degree plan. Going along with the nostalgic feelings that I now am able to have for those past times, I'm going to recommend to you To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I know this book is not everybody's cup of tea, but I just love it. I love the depictions of childhood in this book and the nostalgia that comes with it. I've already read this quote in another video, but it's just too good not to. This is one of my favorite quotes in the book. "The fact that I had a permanent fiancé was little compensation for his absence. I had never thought about it, but summer was Dill by the fish pool, smoking string. Dill's eyes, alive with complicated plans to make Boo Radley emerge. Summer was the swiftness with which Bill would reach up and kiss me when Jem wasn't looking. The longings we sometimes felt each other feel. With him, life was routine. Without him, life was unbearable." And the last book I'm going to recommend to you is Gregor the Overlander by Suzanne Collins. Would it be a video from me if I didn't try to spread the Gregor the Overlander propaganda? This is Suzanne Collins' lesser known, more beautiful child. I love The Hunger Games as much as the next person, but this is her masterpiece in my opinion. It is a middle grade 5-book series, but the first one is amazing on its own. It's a traveling adventure story about a boy named Gregor and his little sister Boots who fall into this underground world of strange humans and giant insects and creatures that talk. And it is just a fantastic time. I'm recommending this book because to me, it is just pure joy in paper format. When I finally passed my computer science courses and became a mentor and having the opportunity to explain the topics that felt like they were going to break me, now understanding them and being able to help somebody else break through that was just absolute joy and one of my favorite things that I've been able to do during my whole time at university. I loved being a mentor. So if you want to go on an adventure and have a wonderful time, then this is the book for you. All right, chickens, moving on to era 2. I call this one my Spencer Hastings era. If you're a Pretty Little Liars fan, then you already know what this is about. Spencer Hastings is an academic weapon, and that's how I felt during this time. School was always on my mind. Mind you, though, that didn't always translate to great grades. They sometimes did and they sometimes didn't, but it was definitely my primary focus. My life was all about computer science. So the first book that I'm going to recommend to you is Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. I love this book, and our main character is obsession personified. The back of the book describes the relationship as having unrelenting currents of obsession, fascination, and desire. Obsession, fascination, and desire were absolutely what I had. This book is ultimately about wanting so deeply, and that's what I felt during this time. This book is just gorgeous. It takes place on the Italian countryside. It is one of my favorite romances of all time. I've read it twice, and the movie is fantastic as well. It also just really beautifully describes solitude and what it feels like to be alone but in love, and I can't recommend it highly enough. But the thing about obsession is that if you put something too much in the forefront of your life, then if it doesn't work out, things start to fall apart. And that's kind of what happened. I was obsessed with school, but it didn't always mean that I was doing well because school's hard. So the next book that I'm going to recommend to you is Stoner by John Williams. So this book follows the life of a man named William Stoner from, I believe, his birth up until his death. There are expectations from his family to go into the farming, agricultural life, and he decides to leave that all behind and become an English student and then eventually an English professor. And though he does this to follow his dreams don't really turn out the way that he expected them to. Life doesn't turn out how he thought it would. It is a lonely novel. I think it fits well into these recommendations because as obsessed as I was with my academics at this time, I was also very sad. This book just kind of goes through the harsh reality that sometimes, even when you love something, it is a thankless job and it's not as glamorous as you thought it might have been. It got chilly. I had to put on a sweater. I'll read you a few quotes from here. He felt at times that he was a kind of vegetable and he longed for something, even pain, to pierce him, to bring him alive. He was ready to admit to himself that he had not been a good teacher. Always, from the time he had fumbled through his first classes of freshman English, he had been aware of the gulf that lay between what he felt for his subject and what he delivered in the classroom. He had hoped that time and experience would repair that gulf, but they had not done so. Those things that he held most deeply were most profoundly betrayed when he spoke of them to his classes. What was most alive withered in his words, and what moved him most became cold in its utterance. Also, the consciousness of his inadequacy distressed him so greatly that the sense of it grew habitual, as much a part of him as the stoop of his shoulders. This is just perfect to include here because it takes place in an academic setting, and it is about having high hopes for something and then the reality being different than what you wanted, but different doesn't always necessarily mean bad. Okay, moving on from sad books. Let's talk about The Witcher. I have here The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny, which are two short story collections by Andrzej Sapkowski that come before the actual Witcher series books. I've only read these two, but I love the show and I plan on finishing the series, just haven't gotten around to it yet. But sticking with the theme of solitude, Geralt of Rivia is our main character. He is the Witcher and he is a very solitary creature, but he makes some great friends throughout these books, like Dandelion, whose name I believe is changed in the show and I can't remember what it is, but here it is. And of course, the iconic Yennefer of Vengerberg, and Cirilla, his surprise child. I'm recommending these books to you because it is a solitary character, just like William Stoner is in Stoner, but this series highlights the power of friendship, in my opinion, even though there is a lot of adventure and crazy monsters. Honestly, that's comparable to some of the assignments that I had to go through. They were monstrous, but I wanted to include this to show how integral having friends to support me and go through that journey was. I met some of my best friends through this messy middle section of my undergrad, and finding other women in my major who were doing the same things as me just changed my college experience so much. I didn't really find my friends in my freshman or sophomore year. It wasn't until I was a junior till I really made strong connections. So the series is a little bit more of a happier take on the same solitary message. I gotta pick up the pace. I have a lot of books to still get through. I also just want to quickly mention Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix because I had a professor who was very Umbridge coded and that was just torturous. This is what it felt like to have to go through a course with a bit of a tyrannical professor who just seemed to not have any human emotions. And the last book I'm going to recommend in this section is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. Now this book is included to represent my anger. I went through so many emotions during this era, and I can't not talk about how angry I was at points because it felt like I was putting in so much effort and getting zero reward for it, and I wanted to give up. It was just really hard to keep myself together. I full on filled out a transfer form to a new university, got accepted, declared a major there, moved to the state, and then decided to come back to my current school because it was going to take an additional 3 years to get my degree somewhere else, and it was better to just stick it out here. So, anger was a big part of that point of my life. Ugh, enough of that. Friends, we have reached era 3, which is the era I am currently in, and this is my Meryl Streep from The Devil Wears Prada era. I know it's a crime that I can't remember her character's name right now, and I'm using all of my devices to film, so I'm not gonna look it up. I caved. I went and looked it up. It's Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada. This is my unbothered era. There is nothing computer science can throw that would shake me anymore. And this is new because in my Spencer Hastings era, every new thing that was introduced to me in the CS world was like a tsunami. It felt like the world was gonna end. Learning every new topic was just like starting from square one. I continuously felt like an idiot, like I never had coded in my life, I didn't belong in the degree, just extreme imposter syndrome even though I was working so hard. And somehow, I think over this past summer, because I did a summer semester, things just stopped surprising me. And starting over and learning new things became the normal. It took me 5 years to get to this point of security, but better late than never. I'm actually in a spot where as much as I love computer science and the art of it, it doesn't have a hold over me the way that it used to. So the first book I'm going to recommend you in this category is The Colossus of New York by Colson Whitehead. I actually just finished this book today. I've mentioned it in so many videos in the past month, so say it with me. It's a nonfiction collection of 13 vignettes about New York City. I'm recommending this book to you because you can just feel Colson Whitehead's love for New York in this book. I'm not from the city, but I've lived in New York State my entire life, and I love New York as well. The passion that he has in here can only come from knowing something very intimately and for a long time, and arguably 5 years in an undergrad degree is not intimate or a long-term relationship when you compare it with people who started computer science in their teenage years and have been doing it for their entire career. But I do feel an intimacy, it sounds weird, with computer science that I don't have with any other topic because I haven't ever gone so deep into something besides this. I also just recommend this book because the prose is gorgeous. I've read one other collection of vignettes by Mona Awad, 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl, which was fantastic as well, and this one was also just stellar, so I should read more vignettes because I do really like them. Here's just a short excerpt describing Central Park. It's got birds and a steady ratio of human to guano contact. It's got weeping willows. They remind me of me. It has ponds. People can't see themselves and pronounce ponds murky, but in fact they are perfect mirrors. And here's the opening sentence. I just love this. A good first line can just say so much about the work as a whole, and I think this one's fantastic. I'm here because I was born here and thus ruined for anywhere else, but I don't know about you. Maybe you're from here too, and sooner or later it will come out that we used to live a block away from each other and didn't even know it. Or maybe you moved here a couple of years ago for a job. Maybe you came here for school. Maybe you saw the brochure. The city has spent a considerable amount of time and money putting the brochure together, what with all the movies, TV shows, and songs, the whole if you can make it there business. So yeah, this is the intimacy requirement. Highly recommend. Next, I'm going to recommend you read Brave New World. Now this is kind of a double whammy because I read this book for the first time because of my degree. I was taking a science fiction course because I also got a minor in literature and creative writing, so I read this book for school and I'm in the middle of a reread with my cousin right now, which has been very fun. I bring up this book because right now, at this point in my degree, my perspective on the computer science world and industry has just changed so much during this era. As we've discussed in my Spencer Hastings era, I was very obsessed. I was in the deep end, couldn't really see life beyond college and life beyond computer science, but very, very recently, I want to say within the past year, I've started to rediscover myself separate from the computer science world. I've found so many new hobbies and new dreams and goals that have nothing to do with computer science. I'm so grateful that I did the degree because I learned so much more than how to code about myself, but I feel like my eyes have been opened to a totally new world and a new way of looking at things now that I'm on the tail end and I'm able to see what my life might look like once I'm done with school and I leave here. So I think Brave New World fits this well because it's about a dystopian society where everybody is just brainwashed. And it kind of feels like going to a school focused on STEM is just a little bit of brainwashing, just a little bit. I did drink the Kool-Aid, and my university's core message had a very big external focus on what we could do for the world at large and didn't really focus so much on how we could change ourselves. And I feel like that's kind of what this book does as well. It's a warning against that sort of thinking. So not sure if this totally makes sense how I'm putting it together, but I'm recommending this book to signify that transition of having that external focus slash brainwashing and then coming to a new understanding and a new perspective of there is life beyond just whatever it is you study in college. Oh, I almost forgot. I also want to recommend the novel Brutes to you. Brutes is one of my favorite reads of this year. I didn't realize it at the time, but as the year has gone on, I read it in like February. I can't stop thinking about it. It is just unlike anything I've ever read before. It has got this weird collective narrative perspective going on where you follow this group of girls that live in Florida. They're like young teens, and one of the girls goes missing, and we're just kind of figuring out what happened to her and just following the girls on their day-to-day lives and the before and the after. But I bring up this novel because it really experiments with form. I've never read a story told in this form before. It plays with the chronology of how the story is told and the perspective. Sometimes we have that weird narrative and sometimes it's an individual perspective. And overall, it just kind of felt like an acid trip at times. So I recommend this specifically because of the course that I'm taking right now. It is the last computer science course that I will ever be taking before I get my degree. And not to get too technical, I know you don't want to hear it, but it is the first functional programming course that I've ever had to do. Everything I've done up until this point has been object-oriented programming, which if you know, you know, but my camera died, so we're just gonna finish this out very quickly on my laptop. So I just wanted it to be there to signify the fact that as much as I think I know about this field, there's just always something that I don't know, and that's how I felt when I read Brutes. I felt like I knew what I was getting into when I picked up the novel, because I've read so many books, it just sometimes feels like things aren't going to surprise you anymore, and I was just blown away, floored, and confused at points, but in a wonderful, amazing way. So that's why I think you should read that. I wish I had the book, I don't, so I can't give you any quotes, but it is just fantastic. It also has like really great descriptions of Florida heat, summer, crazy teen girl feelings of teenage group mania, like the strange obsession that you have with your friends and being a part of something as a teen girl. So if that sounds interesting to you, please pick up that book. It's so good, and very few people talk about it online. For the finale, the last book that we're going to talk about is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I just wanted to include this because this is just the encapsulation of a bittersweet ending. In this book, Harry finally gets to have his showdown against Voldemort. It is the end of the era, the end of his childhood. He becomes an adult in this book, and this is just kind of how I feel right now. I'm sad. It is just a very bittersweet moment to be nearing the end of something that has been the focus of my life for the past 5 years and stepping into something completely new that I am excited for and ready for, but goodbyes are always a little bit hard. So thanks for sticking around and watching the video to the end. I really hope you enjoyed it and you got some good recommendations from this. Please let me know if you've read any of these books in the comments or if you are excited to read any of these, and make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.